Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. This is the Corsair 4000D Airflow. Now this case kind of escaped my notice, not that I have my finger on the pulse or anything, but whatever. I didn't notice that this case was a thing until recently. I saw one briefly came into the shop and I was like, hello, that's very nice, I like the look of this. And then by good fortune, just as I was thinking, oh, I might buy one of those and review it, it went out of stock everywhere. And then by good fortune, a chap came in with this example and a box full of bits that he wants built into it. And I was like, awesome, we're going to get this one on camera before it disappears again. So this one's not mine and it's going out the door tomorrow. So I've got one shot at this. However, as you guys know, I don't do full thermal reviews and all the rest of it with cases. Go to Gamers Nexus for that. However, what I will do is I'll give you a tour of the case and my thoughts on building in it for what that's worth. So let's take a look at this thing first. It's a reasonably sized ATX tower. I wouldn't call it a compact case, but it's also not enormous either. I think it's in terms of height, it's relatively short. Length is reasonable. It's long enough to fit big graphics cards. However, it's not obnoxiously long. You know, it's not going to hang off the front of your desk. It's quite a wide case. I would definitely say it's wider than the average case, but you can get away with that. A lot of cases can get away with adding, you know, another inch onto the width, which gives them lots of room for cable tidying around the back, which is really nice, without making the case seem that much bigger. So the actual dimensions of the case are quite nice. Not super compact, but it's also not a big boy either, because I'm not a huge fan of enormous cases. If we spin it around to the front, as you can see, airflow case, because we're in the airflow meta right now. And the previous Corsair airflow case that I liked quite a lot is the 275 AF. And that's a bit of a controversial case. The front panel on that one is the one that has the crazy diagonal slats on it. And that's a bit of a Marmite design. I like it personally. I really like that case. But there's lots of people who are like, bleh, don't like that at all. Corsair looks like with this one, Corsair moved away from the randomized looking front designs. And they just went for this uniform honeycomb style. Now, this front panel, this guy just pops off here, which is nice. So we don't have to remove the entire front panel. That just pops out. And then we've got direct access to the air filter, which is nice. That's magnetically latching. And behind that, we've got triple fans there. So that is a triple 120. Or could you get three 140s in there? I'm going to get three 140 fans and find out. No, you won't get No, it's triple 120 or double 140. For that front panel. However, as you can see, you actually get direct access to all the rails just by removing the dust filter, which is really nice. It means you don't have to remove this front panel at all to actually install or change anything in the case. And these are, there's a bit of flex in that, but there always is. So yeah, nothing to write home about there. But it's also nice and wide and open. We don't have any issues with the screw holes covering up half of the fan rotors or anything like that. So nice design all around. And obviously they're not blocking any of the fans. So if you put LED fans in this, those are going to be really nice and visible while also having really good dust filtration. So nice design all around there. And the outside bit is plastic. This front grille is metal, so you do have a nice mix of metal and plastic there. It's not all just plastic, because again, that was a complaint that a lot of people had about the Corsair 275 Airflow, is that the front panel was just entirely plastic, and some people thought it was a bit plasticky. Didn't bother me, but again, just what people think. Moving around to the side, full tempered glass side panel. As you can see, this is smoked glass. I don't like smoked glass. And the reason why I don't like it is the only thing it achieves is obscuring the view inside the case, which as far as I'm concerned defies the point of having a window in the first place. And a lot of people will be like sort of, oh, but your RGB lights it up in there. And it's like, yes. However, when I saw one of these built up, I think the chap had he had at least 3 Corsair LED strips around there, and that made for a dim view inside. And I was like, there's 3 LED strips in there, and it's making for a modest view. You need a lot of light to overcome that smoked glass. It's a bit early in the video to be saying this, but this would actually be a deal breaker for me. I wouldn't want to buy one of these purely because of this. I don't know if there's a non-smoked version of it. I have not seen a non-smoked version of it on sale. I don't know if they're going to make an alternative side panel or not. However, as I say, if you want to be able to see your RGB in there, you're going to need some seriously bright RGB. And again, that's the issue, is for some people, they're like, oh, well, my RGB is too bright anyway. And it's like, you can make RGB dimmer, but you can't make it brighter. There are some things like my EVGA 1070 that I have in my home computer. The GTX 1070 logo on the side that lights up, but it's quite dim. You wouldn't see that through here at all. You just wouldn't see it. Now, Corsair RGB is super bright, so you would see it. But the thing is that if you have a clear panel, you can just turn down the brightness of the RGB. So yeah, don't like that, and that makes me really sad because the rest of this case I really like, which we're going to get to. But just an early bit that I don't like. If anyone knows of a non-smoked version of this case, please let me know in the comments. Please relieve me and let me know that there is a non-smoked version available, because it sucks. But yeah, moving on, round to the back. Round the back, we've got a 120mm fan mount, standard issue. We've got a 120mm fan that comes with that, and there's another 120mm fan that comes fitted to the front as well. They're both just bog standard 3-pin case fans. So they're good enough that you can complete your build with them, but it's clearly intended that you take these out and fit aftermarket fans to these, such as ridiculously expensive Corsair fans. That's kind of where they're making their money. Unfortunately, the Corsair 220T and like that one other IQ case seems to be the only one where Corsair actually wants to supply it with some fans and RGB pre-loaded on it. But all the same, the price of this case, which I'll get to in a moment, I think is quite reasonable considering what you're getting with it. So yeah, 2 fans there. Classic Corsair inset I/O panel here, which is okay. It adds a bit more strength to the rear panel. It has got some flex on it, but there's less flex on this than you get on a flat design. The cost of that is you do lose, I don't know, 20mm or so on the inside of the case, which means your graphics card is going to be that little bit longer inside. But it's a worthy trade-off. This isn't a case where you're really going to have space problems, so doesn't bother me anyway. So yeah, back of the case, not much to see really. We've got a power supply already fitted to this, just simply because the client already put theirs in. Obviously, it doesn't come with that. Let's take the back panel off. So both of these panels, the tempered glass side panel and this back panel, they have captive thumb screws on them, and you pop it off and it swings out and then lifts out. So they're trying to get away from the slidey design. It's a little bit fiddly in my opinion. However, I think it is better than the sliding design, because once you've mounted those latches in there, like so, you literally just press it on. So you don't have to, you just do that one hand. You don't have to do the song and the dance where you've got to get it flat and make sure it's perfectly flat and then slide it on, which is why most people's side panels are never quite on properly. So what I really like is the fact that they've done that with the tempered glass side as well. So same deal, captive screws, and this guy pops off like that. So we don't have the 4 thumb screw design, which is a big criticism I have of most Corsair cases with tempered glass. I've said in other videos before, I really hate the 4 thumb screw design. So it's really good to see that Corsair have actually come up with a quick release system of their own. Because NZXT and probably a couple of the other brands have had their own quick release designs for a while, and Corsair have just been like, no, we're doing 4 thumb screws. But now we've got 2 thumb screws, pop off. So yeah, not bad. Looking in the back, it keeps on getting better because we've got this really nice cable guide here, which makes for a bit of a channel to put your cable loom in, and it's a useful one as well. NZXT have had cable channels in their H500 and the similar cases for quite some time, but they're really not useful in my opinion. They are very much rigidly channeled into a very specific location that probably works very well for the NZXT motherboard. However, when I've been building in my H500i, I've never been able to use them to any useful effect. This one, however, it's just got some channels and there's lots of gaps in the channel, so you can exit the cables anywhere. And they've got some nice Velcro tiebacks on there as well, which is nice. Velcro tiebacks are always a really nice touch. They make the building really easy because you can just keep tying things back in there and just keep undoing them and redoing them over and over again. We've got the token gesture dual SSD bays that I still don't care about, but they're there. They stand off a little bit more, so it might be easier to get the cables in, but I don't like these because it's hard to get cables to them. But they're there. You can use them if you want. There is a hard drive cage. It's been removed from this one because, as I say, the customer has already had this out the box. But there is a hard drive cage that fits here as well. As you can see, because this is longer than most of the modern Corsair cases, we get quite a decent amount of space for the power supply as well. So with this one, you'll definitely have no issue having the hard drive cage in and a decently sized power supply. The only caveat for that is if you want to use a 360mm radiator, if you've got a big long rad down the front, that will require you to step the hard drive cage back. But even then, you still put the hard drive cage there, you've still got a decent amount of space for a power supply. So I think this case does allow you to do it all. I don't have a 360mm rad to put that to the test with, but just a casual glance at that makes me look at that and go, yeah, you're not going to have any issues with length in here. This will be fine. And as an added bonus, that power supply enclosure is fully vented as well. So you can mount your power supply either way up. And there's obviously lots of controversy over which is correct. I like having the fan pointing up. You guys can fight me in the comments over that. On the inside, we also have this interesting panel here. And this guy can just lift up and be removed. Has it got a screw? All right, there's a screw up the top here to remove that guy. And then that lifts out. Ugh. And so with this bit removed, that then reveals this cable slot here. So you can do all your building with that and then just stick that over to cover up the incoming cables. And that provides just enough coverage that you can probably have braided cables just disappear into that void. And this is a really nice touch. This is, again, NZXT, because I'll always compare Corsair to NZXT because they're similar brands in terms of quality and the kind of target market. But they have had a similar sort of cable cover style strip in their cases for a long time. That has been one of the main feature attractions inside the case that I've always liked. And it's really good that Corsair have come up with their own personal take on this. So I really like having that. I also really love how easy that is to remove. A lot of these cable tidy things, they're great when it's built, but they can be a bit of a nuisance during the actual build phase. And apart from that, the rest of the case is just an ATX case, basically. The build quality is good, it's rugged, it doesn't flex anywhere where I wouldn't expect it to. It's reassuringly heavy, but not obnoxiously heavy. It's even when empty, it's a pick up with two hands job. But it's got a satisfying feel to it. The paint finish on it looks nice. This top magnetic dust filter is nice, and the top rails on it, which are 120 and 140. They are nicely offset to the outside of the case, which means I'm not expecting to have clearance issues with water cooling radiators like we often see on Corsair cases. Although again, I will be putting that to the test. Once I start building this up, I will just quickly trial fit a water cooler in there just to see what the clearances are like, because top mount radiator clearances are always an issue on Corsair cases, I've been finding. And on the note of the front panel, number one, as glory would be, Corsair have made nice looking USB ports at long last. Like in all of my case reviews, I bitch and I moan about the fact that Corsair cases have really trashy looking front USB ports. Always makes me sad. And on this one, look, we have nice straight rectangles. Nice and straight. None of the annoying, like, just folded metal look, which I really hate. And we've got Type-C on it as well. Now, I know that most of you guys watching are probably like, I don't have Type-C anything. I know that feel. I don't have Type-C anything either. But the reason why I don't have Type-C anything is nothing has Type-C on it. We're not going to buy Type-C accessories until we have Type-C on our computers. So I'm really happy to see Type-C on the front of a decent PC case. So if I bought one of these, I could start buying Type-C accessories and plug it straight into the front of my case. The only thing that I'm sad about is that they sacrificed a USB 3 Type-A port for it. Now, what makes me sad here is what I'm sure I will find if I go to the front panel loom. And sure enough, we've got two cables for the front USB ports. So that's our Type-A port and that's our Type-C port. So firstly, if you're buying this case and you want to use that Type-C, remember you need the Type-C connector on your motherboard to utilize that. Any decent motherboard these days should have one of these. However, some low-end motherboards might not have it, so just beware of that. And that's actually a trap I think we may fall into with the motherboard that I'm planning on putting in this. So yeah, just be aware, if you want to use that Type-C connector, it does have a weird funky new connector that's quite uncommon at the moment. However, as I was saying, we have two connectors. This connector here is capable of carrying two Type-A ports. And the Type-C one will be on its own cable anyway. So basically, there's zero reason not to have two Type-A ports on top of this case. So why I'm sad about this and why I'm sad that Corsair still haven't quite got it right with the top panel is we've got a Type-C connector, but what they should have done was put two Type-A's and the Type-C. And in reality, what we've actually done is we've sacrificed the connector that you're actually going to use all the time to put on a connector that you'll use some of the time. And yeah, like if they'd done both of these and it was carried on a single cable, that would make sense. But that's not how this works. This requires its own separate cable anyway. So there's zero reason not to have two Type-A ports up here. Quite frankly, I don't know why they didn't put both of them there. Zero reason. So yeah. They're so close. You're so close, Corsair, to a perfect top panel. And also, give me a hard drive light again. I want a hard drive LED. I mean, I can hook up the power LED to the hard drive LED, but I want a hard drive LED. So that's our walk around completed. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to cut to the montage, and I'm going to build this guy up, and I'll let you know how it is to build him. However, already with the amount of access we've got on this thing, quite looking forward to this.
Don't work well.
I'm test fitting with a 280mm radiator, so this is a worst case scenario as far as I'm concerned. It does fit up the top, however it won't clear the RGB RAM that I have fitted. If I had a 240mm radiator that was a bit narrower, that would clear RGB RAM. So if you've got a 240mm radiator, you can more or less put that wherever you want. If you have a 280mm radiator, you're going to need to make sure you get more modestly sized RAM if you want to mount that up the top. Front mount options again are the same. A 240mm radiator you can more or less put anywhere you like at any orientation with the hoses up or down. However, my 280mm radiator required me to put the hoses up the top in order to fit it in. Right, we're all built up in this thing now. And, I mean, I always say that Corsairs are easy to build in, with a couple of exceptions. Some of their more compact cases can be a little bit tight-fitting around the motherboard and stuff like that. This one, because of the bigger overall size of the case, this was super, super easy to build in. There's loads of gaps around the bottom of the motherboard to thread up your cables with. You could possibly argue that the holes are a little bit wider than they need to be, which just means that it's that little bit harder to hide the cables. But that's not a huge deal. If you straighten your cables out and you carefully zip tie them all together and stuff like that, you can make those look neat and tidy. I didn't put in hours of work to do that on this particular build because this is a demonstration build and this is getting torn down as soon as I hit stop recording. However, on principle, that would be really easy to do. Lots of space around the top of the motherboard for feeding through the CPU power cable and fan cables and stuff like that as well. The cable cover that goes down the full height of the motherboard, that was incredibly useful. It was nice to be able to remove that while building, as I mentioned earlier on. And I also noticed when I was going to refit it again that it actually has two positions it can go in. It can go into its original position, or you can also move it a little bit further back if you're struggling for cable clearance. So if you're just struggling to fit in some big heavy wires, you can just back it off a little bit to give yourself a little bit of extra room, which is also very nice. The actual aesthetic of the case I really like. I love the front panel design as much, I mentioned at the start of the video, but as much as I like Corsair's more abstract front panel designs, this one looks really swish. You can see the fans quite clearly through the front of it. So if you have grotty fans, you might want to mount them behind your radiator, but if you've got LED fans, they are going to look really good in this case. This case is begging for LED fans. I'd imagine the only reason why it's not supplied with any is just because this is kind of intended for a full custom setup. So Corsair are very much assuming that you're going to bring your own LED fans to this, hence the reason why they only supplied a couple of airflow fans just for good measure. I also really like the way that they've got just small accents on everything. I cut this little yellow clothing tag on the top thing. It's such a small thing, but it's just that little bit of accent color just looks really nice. And likewise, the thumb screws on the back of the computer have got a little yellow accent on them. And then on the inside of the case, we've also got the Corsair word mark with just a little yellow square and the 4000D writing on the power supply enclosure. And just those little accent pieces here and there just really make this case for me. They just make it stand out rather than just being another cookie cutter case. So that it adds a very premium feel to this. Premium is kind of a difficult thing to describe, and it's just getting into sort of review speak here. But you know, it can be in the build quality, it can be in the paint finish. But in this case, it's just these little bits of trim here and there that just add those finishing touches to this case that actually make it look like a premium case to me. Some of Corsair's cheaper cases they're fine, but they're not really that much above the cheap budget brand cases, which often offer more interesting features like RGB and stuff like that. Whereas honestly, this case feels like it should be more expensive than it is. And that brings us round to the price of it. I expected this case to cost £100. That was my guess. But when I actually looked it up, it's on sale on Amazon and other places like Overclockers right now for £70, if you can find one in stock anyway. And for £70, I think that's a bargain, quite frankly. Now, because I have reviewed budget cases that cost more than this, and the budget cases, you know, those come with RGB fans and stuff like that, but you know, they're cheap RGB fans, so that's a nice extra, but it's not an awful lot extra. However, getting this Corsair build quality and all of these little finishing touches and trim levels that I've been talking about, and a front USB Type-C port for £70, I think is actually quite staggeringly good value for money. And, you know, this is now potentially the weapon of choice for a quality build. The customer themselves is actually putting a budget PC in this, or rather I'm going to build a budget PC into this when I'm finished reviewing it. And initially when they came in with this case, I was like, maybe you should have spent more money on the components and less on the case. But when I actually looked up how much this was, I was pleasantly surprised, and I actually think that this is a perfect choice for literally any build, because even if you've done a budget build where you didn't have a lot of money to spend on your CPU, your motherboard and your graphics card, you've got it in a really nice case that looks like £1,000 kind of thing, even if your PC didn't cost that much. And that is what really makes a computer that you're proud of and that you never get bored of looking at when you walk in and see it sitting on the desk. For me, the only thing that makes me sad is just that smoked glass side panel. But again, this is my personal preference. It's up to you guys whether that's a problem or not. And you never know, there might be a non-smoked glass version of it, either available somewhere out there that I can't find, or coming soon, perhaps next year, when supply is better. So my only two concerns about this case really are the lack of a clear side panel, the lack of two Type-A ports on the front panel, and also just the fact that trying to fit 280mm radiators is still a hassle, despite how long they've been around for. This case is otherwise spot on, and all of these niggles are either personal preferences or not really a big deal. Quite frankly, I could easily have one of these sitting on my desk at home and be quite happy with it. I'm very sure I'm going to be seeing more of this case in the future, and it's really good to see Corsair designing something that is actually new from the ground up, rather than just another rehash of an already existing case. Rehashed cases are something that I feel like we're seeing a lot of these days, where a manufacturer is taking an existing case and just slapping a new front panel on it. And don't get me wrong, there are some great case designs out there. However, sometimes there are some really nasty traps which you won't notice until you remember that the case was actually designed some 5 years ago. And that's my take on the Corsair 4000D. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stick around for the end cards, or check the description down below for my support links to my Twitter, my Patreon, and my Discord. See you all soon. Bye for now.